Hello, Mark. Want to get together with you today and introduce the new features that have been built in PPM's release 23.3. Portfolio, what if functionality. It's got a bunch of new screens. So let's take time today to share with everyone about those updates and features. How's that sound, Mark?
No problem at all, Alan. Let me take you through the changes that have been made. So the what if analysis is still available from the open menu on your home screen, but is also available from within any of the portfolios that you may be looking at or working with as before. So in this example here, you can see that I have the business unit finance portfolio. It's a sub portfolio with inside Advantage Inc. And my what if analysis is available on the right hand side of the screen. And let me open up that area of the system. As you can see, Alan, I have currently no scenarios created for the finance business unit. But if I click on the add button in the top left hand corner, I can create a new scenario for the finance business unit, giving it a name. So we'll call this the revised plan. Clicking on the done, and the scenario is added successfully to the listing, and it will automatically load me into the content view for this particular what if scenario. And you see in the top right hand side of the screen, I actually have a series of different visualizations available for me for this particular what if analysis. Now I've started here on this prioritization view, and very simply, I have visualizations of my money, my resource, and the costs associated to all of the work in the portfolio. And if I scroll up and down, you can see the list of the available content. And quite simply, I can move them out of the portfolio into the deselected area. And as I do so, it has an impact on the monies and the resources detailed in the graphs or the widgets at the top of the screen here. And as I move the data in and out, it will continuously affect the information on the top of the screen. And down at the bottom here, I have a visualization of my current financial view. I can see the amount of money I have available, the capacity, and how much demand is being placed on my budgets from this particular scenario of work or this particular mix within the what if analysis. And the reason I have a number of different options in this top right hand corner is that I may wish to view the data from a different perspective. So this is looking at the content with the money and the resources associated to it. If I go to the planning Gantt here, it's going to give me a visualization of all of the work that I've selected, my breakdown of my budget again, and also a visualization of the different KPIs and strategic themes that this scenario of work is delivering within this portfolio. And at the top of the screen, I have an analysis of the strategic impact that the different pieces of work are delivering. So you have a data point here in April 24, where there's an increase in the customer delight KPI that we're currently tracking against. And from the list of options again in the top right hand corner, I could switch this time to the planning board, which is a quarterly view, as you can see. And this is giving me a very simple visualization where I can see all of the work elements, which if I'm looking from a top-down perspective, these are the different pieces of work that are going on maybe in a quarterly sprint perspective. You can change this visualization to be quarterly or monthly, depending on how you prefer to work. But you can see that the jagged edges and the solid edges on these different elements indicate where a piece of work is spanning across multiple times, multiple quarters or sprints, depending on how you're visualizing the data. And it's providing me the summary information around the monies and access to the piece of work directly itself, just from clicking and drilling down into the project or the epic, whichever entity that we're looking at.
Hey,
If I
Mark. Well, I
Yep.
noticed the three different views that you show us, the priority view, and then you have this board view. It sort of feels very much aligned with the different methodologies that our customers might be using, where a board view might be more comfortable, like you've already said, managing epics and features and sprints, where the prioritization is more of a classic portfolio sense and feel. Would you agree?
I would indeed, Alan. Yes.
Well, then next, I mean, I saw those, you had three or four drop downs in that sort of the templates that you had there or the views. Are there more?
Well, very simply, Alan, these are just three examples that I have here, but there are unlimited numbers that you can create from what we call the template capability. So if I come back out of this scenario, and if I come back out of that scenario, Alan, to the screen where I created it from originally, you'll see in the top right-hand corner here, I have the what if layout templates. If I open this up, you'll see that I have all of those capabilities, all of those templates, those visualizations that we've just seen created here for me. If I take an example here, the one we didn't look at was called financial viability. And this is just an example one that I've been working on at the moment. And in this creation view or editing view, I have down the left-hand side all of the different items that I can drag and drop onto the template view itself. So if, for example, I would like to see a graphical widget, I could go and pick a pie chart, drop the pie chart onto the screen and create my definition of that chart on the right hand side. So for example, am I going to look here at the health status or the amount of man days being utilized or the story points associated to the series of epics that we might be looking at? And I can pick the value here and say, okay, we'll look at the actual story points. Or I might have a bar chart that I would like to put in there. You can see it's given me an immediate visualization so that I can work on this on the fly and understand how it would look in a real life scenario. So I can title a chart if I wish to do so, and I'm going to look at the forecast effort person months, and there you go, I have my visualization created. Below those on the left-hand side, Alan, I also have these constraint indicators. Now we're already using the budget visualization on the top of my template, but I could take a resource constraint indicator, drop that into any position I require within the layout of the page. And I'm now looking at the view of the remaining resource hours. I can look at that from a perspective of overload ratio, utilization, whatever it might be. The colors that are being used here are based on the rules defined on the right hand side, where everybody can set their own tolerance levels for what depicts red, amber, and green associated to, in this case, the resources, or in terms of associated to the budget, or against a custom constraint indicator using other values within this portfolio.
I'll tell you what, Mark, I am seeing the great sophistication and the potential for making a lot of customizations. I even see those corner handles on several of those widgets. And I think we even indicated that as you were dragging on that new element, you can resize those things, and have sort of three or four components based on your restraints of the windows, just to align with that. So, I mean, you can drag and drop them and easily configure screen visualization components. That's fantastic. A lot of potential there.
Very much so. And of course, it's completely flexible, Alan. So I can go back to these at any time. And if story points is not working for me here, go and update it, change it back to person months or forecast cost or whatever
Yeah. The other thing
the
I noticed
attribute
on
is
the
I wish
upper
to use.
right, I'm sorry, Mark. The other thing I also noticed on the upper right, although it's grayed out, is you have some capabilities of creating sort of draft and then publishing those changes. So you have sort of a developer's mind where you can make some adjustments sort of behind the curtain, and only when you're ready to sort of reveal the new wonderful car or whatever behind curtain number three, would you be able to publish that? Can you also control the constraints about visibility, and so everyone doesn't have access to every template?
Yeah, very much so. So the publish capability allows this template to be used, but you then can go and associate that template to different portfolios. So as an example, if you're looking at your project portfolio, you may have different requirements, different layouts and pages to use than maybe against your ESG portfolio or your product portfolio. So associating, not just publishing them, but associating them to the portfolios you wish to use them with.
It's fantastic. So I also heard, and this is a kind of a bit of a change, that we have some dependency mapping that we've added visually as some components. Could you also kind of highlight those new enhancements?
Yeah, no problem at all. Now, dependency mapping came in version 23.4, so that's come out in the Q4 release of PPM. So to
That
look
was
at
just a
that,
few weeks ago, wasn't it?
it was indeed. So to look at that, I'm going to go across to our PPM beta system. So bear with me whilst I change. So I've now opened a what if analysis, and it's a slightly different titled scenario I'm looking at here, but this is one that was created here in PPM beta. And I'm looking at the strategic planning Gantt view, and you'll notice now that there's a tab at the top of the screen for turning on dependencies. And if I click on this, I'll now immediately be able to visualize the dependencies in this Gantt chart for this what if scenario. Therefore, if I move things, change things, remove things, I can view the impact it has on dependent pieces of work. But I also have the ability here to take something like Customer Connect here, and using the add dependency flag, can go and pick this piece of work and say that the finish of this has a dependency on the ERP system itself, or the bill testing project here also has a dependency on bill QA here, and it will draw those dependencies for me. And again, can see using the icon down the left hand side, if I want to understand the different dependencies here, it will provide me with that graphical visualization again. So if I move into the planning board quarterly view, where we're looking at, again, that more traditional Kanban type of visualization, where we're looking at, in this case, all of the different pieces of work going on month by month. So that could very much be related to sprints, as you may visualize them. And I have the ability to click on the add dependency again here. And this time I could take something like the ERP financial upgrade. If I click on it, you'll see that it goes green with the highlight, and I can take it to any other piece of work and create a dependency
Oh,
between
that's
those
great.
pieces of work. Bill play to ERP treasury, and go and create these different relationships and different dependencies as required. And again, these will now impact decisions I make within the what if analysis. As I move things around, I will see the impacts it has on the different dependencies. And if I wanted to see that
Okay.
graphical visualization again, the icon appears within this view, and I can just click on the dependencies icon and immediately see a visualization of everything that is being mapped to my ERP financial upgrade
The
project.
potentials here are fantastic. Can I modify that relationship I've created also in this same screen, or do I have to go somewhere else?
Now you can just quite simply click on the relationship, delete it, remove it, go and create it, create a new one, whatever you wish to do.
Yeah, that is slick. Let me ask you about one more thing. I know there's just a lot of potential here and a lot of things to look at. The apply button in the upper right hand corner, is that like a save button? What is that? Like, because I see save and apply. What's the difference?
Okay, so the save quite simply saves this scenario as it is, allows me to come back to it at any point in time, but the apply button will then go and apply the changes that I've made to the live data and impact the projects and the proposals that are currently in flight.
I'll tell you what, that is a feature almost like a pressing the easy button. Those changes, instead of being, I mean, there is some risk, right? So if you have a junior resource that are making these changes, there's some risk to that apply button. But with that apply button, all of those massages and those incremental changes you're making now are made back to not the scenario, but back to the record of source, right? To back to the actual record in production.
That's correct. And I
All
would
right.
just recommend controlling access to that button.
I can't stop there, Mark. I see in the upper left-hand corner a refresh, reload, snapshot. Let's talk a little bit about those features too.
Yeah, no problem at all, Alan. So if I've come in here and I've played around with my scenario and I've made some dependencies and added a few bits and pieces in and moved things around, the restore capability just basically allows me to go back to the point where I came into this scenario. The reload capability allows me to go and reload from the source data any changes that have taken place back at that level. So if projects have updated or proposals have moved on and budgets have updated and any of the information has changed, it allows me to go and grab or refresh that associated information.
Excellent.
And the snapshot allows me quite simply to take a snapshot of the scenario that I've been playing with at this point in time, and I can then reuse those snapshots from a comparison perspective further on down the line. So comparing, different tweaks and changes that I've made, and maybe deciding that actually this was the best. It's almost like a subversion of each of the scenarios.
Well, I'll tell you, Mark, we have seen a lot in the features that you showed. I want to say thanks for taking time. But before we do that, I mean, there is a lot coming. I see there's a lot of potential for making future enhancements in the widgets that we've made available and those components and even the filter capabilities. Would you agree?
Oh, very much so. There's a lot more planned for the new what-if capabilities on the PPM roadmap. I look forward to being able to show more of that to you next year.
Sounds good. I'll say hats off to the team that worked on this, the R&D team and the teams that work on this to build and Victoria's input as well. Thanks for taking time today, Mark.
Bye for now, Alan.